My name is Ann Murama. I am an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and currently I work as a Principal State Counsel at the Office of the Attorney General. So I will be taking you through the mandate of the Office of the Attorney General. I will tell you the different departments in brief that you can, if you decide to come and work at the Office of the Attorney General, you can work in either of those departments. And then I will go on, delve deeper into the International Law Division. That's where I work. I will tell you the day-to-day work that we do at the International Law Division. And then I will finish off by telling you the opportunities available at the Office of the Attorney General and how you can get those opportunities. So to start off, Article 156(4) of the Constitution of Kenya, and I think she mentioned, designates the Attorney General as the principal legal advisor to government. You just missed the word legal, but it's principal legal advisor to government. And the Attorney General represents the national government in any court proceedings or legal proceedings where the government has been sued or the government is a party, other than criminal matters. So it's only civil matters that the Attorney General, in criminal matters, civil matters, that's where the Attorney General mandate comes in. And we also have the Office of the Attorney General Act, number 49, that also gives now in detail the functions of the Office of the Attorney General. At your free time, please look at the Act and see what is the mandate of the Office of the Attorney General. Sawa sawa? Yeah, and then the powers of the AG may be exercised by the Attorney General herself now, or by subordinate officers acting in accordance with the general or special powers. So sometimes you see the Attorney General, acting by herself, but sometimes you see state counsel in court. How many are already doing pupillage here? I know some, I met some who are already in the Office of the Attorney General. You've met counsel from Office of the Attorney General in court? You have? So as I said, the Office of the Attorney General, the AG can exercise powers by herself or through subordinate officers. And that's where now state counsel come in, because you do be given to work in any other department and then you are assigned a matter. You appear in court before the Attorney General, and it will be regarded as the Attorney General representation. What are the departments under the Attorney General office? So there is recently Executive Order number 1 of 2025. It used to be Office of the Attorney General and Department of Justice. But now we have State Law Office and State Department of Justice, Human Rights and Constitutional Affairs. So some of the functions shifted to the State Department for Justice, Human Rights and Constitutional Affairs, and then others remain at the State Law Office. So civil litigation is one of the departments under the Office of the Attorney General. There are quite many, like 12 of them. I'll just tell you briefly what are the departments and what are their functions, because now I will delve more into the international law, but I will help you to understand what this department does. So civil litigation is in charge of day-to-day, like they would go to court to represent the government when it has been sued. And when I say the government, I mean the ministries, departments, agencies. Is it? Anytime, those are our clients now. Ministries, departments, agencies. Anytime the government has been sued or is a party to any dispute, then it's the Attorney General as the principal legal advisor to government that comes in, steps in. So in various matters, constitutional matters, and all matters that anywhere where the government has been sued. And this civil litigation department, actually, it has been decentralized to almost 47 counties, because they want to ensure that the government is represented in all the matters. Hadi kule mashinani, kuna zile ofisi zinakuwa set up so that we represent the government effectively. And then civil litigation is also in charge of doing research and advising on matters legal especially on domestic and also foreign arbitration. It also does a lot of work on that. And then we have the Government Transaction Division. So the Government Transaction usually is in charge of vetting and agreements that have, let's say, public procurement or public infrastructure, loan guarantees, and also things like, you've seen like the SGR, the expressway. So those contracts, they have to come to the Office of the Attorney General for vetting, for us to say these are sound from a legal point of view before they can proceed. And we work hand in hand with the National Treasury. So when you see all these multi-billion projects, they have to pass through the Office of the Attorney General for vetting. And the department that does that work is the Government Transaction Division. And if you check the Public Procurement Act, it says that any accounting officer that is entering into a contract for over 5 billion and above, it has to come to the Office of the Attorney General for vetting. So those are some from the commercial side of the government. That is the department that deals with vetting of those agreements. And then International Law Division, I will not talk so much because I'm going next to talk about it. And then we have Legal Advisory and Research Division. This one is purely now research on interpreting the Constitution and other subsidiary legislation. That is the work of the Legal Advisory and Research Division. And they're also in charge of capacity building, ensuring that the library is well equipped. When I mean the library, is the library of the Office of the Attorney General, trying to give all the council materials that they would need to perform any research, legal research. And then we have Legislative Drafting Department. Legislative Drafting Department is the department that prepares legislative texts for the government. They also draft bills. They attend even in the National Assembly during the readings of the bill. So that's the work of the Legislative Drafting Department. When the laws are being reviewed, they are the people who do the work together with Kenya Law Reform Commission. How many are aware about the Kenya Law Reform Commission? So they work hand in hand with the Kenya Law Reform Commission to things to do with Legislative Drafting Department. It's done at that department. And then they also prepare appointments, official appointments for people being appointed to public offices. So they're the ones who draft all those. And then we have the Advocate Complaint Commission. This one is in charge of instilling discipline in the legal field. So if kama kuna wakili amekula pesa ya mtu, hajamulipa wamekosana, this is where the complaints are brought. Advocate Complaints Commission. They are based at the Cop House near Haile Selassie there. That's where they are based. So they go through the complaints and they work hand in hand with the Law Society of Kenya. And then we have the Registrar General. So this one has three components. We have the Registrar General for marriages. We have one for Court of Arms. And then we have one for societies. For marriages is just registration of all marriages. And then they also conduct civil marriages. And then for societies, they're in charge of registration of societies. And then we have, I've talked about societies, registration of societies. Societies is where there are more than 10 people. Let's say it's a club, it's a company that needs to be registered, and registration is done at the societies. Societies is at the Office of the Attorney General, ground floor Sharia House. And then public trustee is in charge of registration of grants. Nani ako aware about the work of public trustee? I know this one you've already learned in school. So the Office of the Attorney General also does public trustee. Administrator General is the one in charge. And then on this other side, I said now we have a new State Department. State Department for Justice, Human Rights and Constitutional Affairs. We have the National Legal Aid Service. the National Legal Aid Service gets its mandate from the Legal Aid Act. So there's this one National Legal Aid Program that this department works to be able to create awareness in terms of legal aid, ensuring that those vulnerable people are able to access justice. So basically, that is the work around the implementation of the Legal Aid Act. And then we have the National Anti-Corruption Campaign Steering Committee. Of course, things to do with corruption, they're the ones that deal at the Office of the Attorney General. And then Governance, Justice, Law and Order, GJ Laws. This one, when Martha Karua was still, there was a Ministry of Justice before, a while back. So these were some of the functions that ministry used to do. Now it has come as a state department under the Office of the Attorney General. And then Victim Protection Board, they're in charge of implementation of the Victim Protection Act, ensuring that the victims are safe and they are able to testify in cases. And also we have the Department of Justice. Department of Justice comprises of National Legal Aid Service, Anti-Corruption, and GJ Law. It's just that the departments have been split into different areas, but it's one and the same thing. And then now we'll go to International Law Division. Who can tell me what they think the Office of the Attorney General at the International Law Division does?
Thank you. I think, one, it looks at international legal instruments that are brought to the country in terms of treaties that needs to be ratified and the government needs to sign. So they advise the government in terms of those and also represent the government in any legal matter international that may be required. Yes. Yeah,
awesome. Let me enlighten you about the International Law Division. So that is our mission. Provide excellent, timely and impartial legal services on international law matters on behalf of the government, through provision of efficient, effective, and sound advice. And then the mandate of the department, we have several mandates that because now the International Law Division is in charge of public international law, advising government on public international law, and that is law to do with state-to-state relation and international organization. You're aware about that? Yeah, so when it comes to legal advice on public international law, then it's the work with the Office of the Attorney General, International Law Division. And we work closely with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs because they're also in charge of foreign relations. So one of the mandates is provide legal advice to MDA on bilateral, regional, and international law matters. So for instance, sometimes you see when the president, let's say, has gone to UK, has gone to Uganda, has gone to Tanzania, there are some bilateral agreements that are signed at that level. So those agreements, when they come to the office, it's the Department of International Law that vets those agreements to ensure that they are sound from a legal point of view. And they have to be vetted before they are signed, so that we tell you in terms of dispute settlement, this one you need to change. In terms of obligations, these ones you need to change, because if you don't do at the initial stages, then it can bring problems when you proceed with the implementation. So this one we do within 6 days. You make sure that you've gotten all the information from the ministry. When you see MDA, it's ministry, department, or agency, because I've said those are our clients. You see the way in a law firm you have the public as your client. Now here, when you work in the AGs, this is the ministries are your clients. So we get instructions from them. When you get all the complete information, you vet the agreement, you vet whether it's an MOU, whether it's a treaty within 6 days, and then you forward your comments to the MDAs. The MDAs look at your comments and then they incorporate, and then they negotiate again with their counterparts in the foreign country, to ensure that it's legal it's sound from a legal point of view. And then we also provide legal advice on implementation of treaties and conventions to which Kenya is a party to. How many are aware? You can just shout the different treaties that Kenya is a party to. How many? This information you should know. Huh? EAC, anza tu na EAC hapa. You know, treaty establishing the East African Community. Yes. Kenya is a party to that. Another one? Good, African Union. Another one? Good, COMESA. Another one? There's a Marrakesh Agreement, WTO, that one. You said Vienna Convention on Laws of Treaties, that is good. Another one? Commonwealth. Yes, good. Another one? Paris. Awesome. Another one? Sorry? Double taxation agreement. Yes. So for double taxation agreement, they would fall here under bilateral, regional and international, let's say, agreements, because it's a bilateral. Bilateral is between two countries. So it's Kenya and UK, that's a bilateral. But DTA is also one of those things that we vet. And then, so under the treaties and convention to which Kenya is party to, how do we work on that? When, let's say, Kenya has signed and ratified the East African Community Act, when you come back, you're supposed to implement. See, because you're bound by those obligations, you don't just go sign and then you come back, you put it in the shelf and keep quiet. You have to implement the obligation because you're bound by it. Because some obligations say shall. And then what does Article 2.6 of our Constitution say? Anybody? Yeah, is there a mic somewhere where?
Any law that has been ratified outside the country forms part of our laws.
Yes, thank you so much. So any treaties, conventions that have been ratified, they become part and parcel of our laws. So when you see the president going and signing and then it comes back, it has to be implemented because now they form part and parcel of our laws. Is it? Yes. And then when you check those provisions, there are some provisions because the Constitution has said when you ratify it becomes part and parcel of our laws. There are some provisions that are self-executing and others you need to do what? To domesticate. If they tell you to, in an international treaty, to set up an institution, you know, you cannot just come and you implement that one. You need to ensure that it's aligned with your laws so that you're able to implement. So there are those that we actually require to domesticate and ensure that we've put in place measures that will allow us to implement the obligations arising from that treaty. But there are those ones that are just self-executing. You don't need to do much. Like if, for instance, I'll just give you an example. I don't want to go far. East African Community says when you sign, you also have to establish an institution that will be in charge of EAC matters. We have the Ministry of EAC. So that is part of implementation of that. And then besides that, we also monitor the implementation of those treaties. Because when you ratify a treaty, you're also supposed to report. There are reporting obligations. There are also obligations in terms of finances, whereby you're required, let's say, to make a subscription. So the Office of the Attorney General also checks to ensure that we are complying with those obligations and we are aligned to our laws. We don't do things that sheria yetu inasema hii, alafu hii ingine inasema hii. And then we also provide legal advice and coordinate in matters of judicial cooperation and international criminal justice. The Office of the Attorney General is the central authority. When you leave from here, go and check the Mutual Legal Assistance Act. You put it down somewhere, you note it. So the Office of the Attorney General is the central authority when it comes to international judicial cooperation in criminal matters. And when we talk about international judicial cooperation matters, we are talking about three things. The mutual legal assistance, you've heard about extradition, you've heard about transfer of sentenced persons, right? So when it comes to mutual legal assistance, what you're saying could fit there because it's some form of cooperation. You require state-to-state cooperation. Usually, we enter into treaties with different countries, bilateral, but we call them treaties, mutual legal assistance treaties, so that we are able to cooperate in terms of, let's say, prosecution, investigation of criminal matters. That is where the Mutual Legal Assistance comes in. And we have, I've already told you about the Mutual Legal Assistance Act. Go and check. There's a criteria of how a matter can afford mutual legal assistance under our laws. And then we have extradition. So let's say someone has, you've murdered someone in the US. Someone has murdered someone in the US, and then they take a plane, come to Kenya. You arrive in Kenya, umesema umeenda kujificha, si ndio? But now, because we have extradition treaty between Kenya and US, we can invoke that one to be able to bring back this person to go and face the charges. You understand? So we work with other competent authorities, like the Director of Criminal Investigation, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution. When it comes, sometimes it comes to ethics and anti-corruption when it's a matter that involves them. We also work with the Department of Immigration. So you'd see we'll be able to cooperate and be able to know where this person is, arrest them, and then we do a formal process of extradition. So you go back to where you committed the crime to go and face the full force of the law. You've understood that one? Yes. Yeah, so where the role of the AG is the central authority. All those requests, they come to the Office of the Attorney General first from MFA. So the Ministry of Foreign Affairs receives the request from foreign, let's say, authority like the US, and then it will forward to the Office of the Attorney General as the central authority. We will peruse the documents, and then now we say, this one we will write to DCI. DCI is the competent authority. Or this one, it's a full extradition request. We are going to ask the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution to execute that request. But it has to be complete, so we have those treaties with them. And then transfer of sentenced person is also another one. That one is, it borders with social justice and reintegration of those guys who've already completed their sentences. So let's say someone has served their sentence, or rather is serving their sentence in another country, and they want to be brought back because they have to consent first back to Kenya. They are Kenyans, lakini umeshikwa kule, let's say Pakistan. I'm giving an example. Umeshikwa kule and then you come back to Kenya. You want to come back to Kenya to finish the remainder of your sentence. What do? You invoke that extradition treaty that we have between the two countries, if we have. Sawa sawa? Yeah, so you come and the conditions are lazima uko umebakisha 6 months as the remainder of your sentence, so at least usikuje kama uko almost kumaliza kama hiyo, then it will not beat the purpose, is it? So there are 3 things when it comes to international judicial cooperation: MLA, extradition, and transfer of sentenced persons. And then we also represent the Republic of Kenya in international arbitration and litigation matters. And then we represent the AG in multinational, regional, and international conferences and workshops as requested by the MDAs. So whenever, let's say, a ministry has called the Office of the Attorney General, there's an international meeting or conference, and there are legal issues that needs to be addressed. The International Law Division is the one that handles such kind of requests. So we work closely with the line ministry. And then we also participate in the negotiations and ratification process of regional and international legal instrument. This one, our mandate comes from the Treaty Making and Ratification Act. So that one you also add there, you go and read the treaty. It's quite short. It gives you how ratification needs to be done. And the Office of the Attorney General forms part of the negotiations of the ratification process. And also we monitor the implementation of treaties ratified by Kenya and coordinate the reporting obligation to international and regional treaty body. These ones we've already talked about. Yeah. So areas of practice, treaty making and implementation. We've already talked about the Treaty Making and Ratification Act that gives the Office of the Attorney General mandate. So we are involved in terms of ensuring that once the country has ratified a treaty, then it then follows that it has to implement the obligations arising from that treaty. And then we have international trade and investment law. We have international humanitarian law. I will just read them and then we are going deeper into it. And then we have international environment law, intellectual property law, aviation space law, international judicial cooperation arrangements, law of the sea and maritime law, laws relating to UN and other international and regional bodies, and also on security matters. So you see the way the work of international law is quite diverse. Huh? This is an area that if you want to explore and you get a feel of the international field, this is a very good place to come and work. And then in terms of the functions, now I'm going deeper into it. Treaty making and implementation, we negotiate, draft, vet, and provide legal advice on all these documents and treaties for on behalf of the government of Kenya. And why we usually insist on negotiations? Because at the initial stage, let's say when Kenya wants to ratify a certain treaty, I'll give you an example. Somebody mentioned about the African Union. There's African Continental Free Trade Area, ACFTA, that Kenya ratified. So once you ratify, you have to, we've said you have to implement the obligations, is it? But it's good when the office is involved from the negotiations. See, unajua disputes are bound to occur. So when the office is involved right from the word go, you're able to even, let's say, secure the interest of the country and make sure that you try and limit those potential risks that could have occurred were it not that the legal department was involved. So our work is to negotiate. Once you're involved in the negotiations, you also draft, you also vet. Vet is just to check and ensure that it's legal from, it's sound from a legal point of view. And then we also provide advice to government on the activities of bodies, organizations that require submission of a country position, including the UN, African Union, EAC, amongst others. Someone mentioned COMESA, all those things. And then we've already talked about arbitration. This is the former AG Githu Muigai in one of the arbitration cases. So we work hand in hand with the line ministry in international arbitration. You know, the government sometimes it's sued by the contractors. You've heard about international arbitration. And it's a potential huge risk of money. So that it's always good to involve the Office of the Attorney General so that some of those risks are mitigated. And there are some cases that we've been able to win and save the government. When you check, because of time, when you check the website of the Office of the Attorney General, there's a part where we are talking about the success stories. There are a number of cases, Kotek, Kinangop, a number of cases there, like 10 of them. And then we have international trade and investment law. This is what I do day to day in the office. Provides advice to government ministries department on compliance with international trade obligations. And then we negotiate those agreements. WTO, right now we are doing African Union, we are doing about the African Continental Free Trade Area in conjunction with the relevant government ministry. So in this case, if it's trade, it will be the Ministry of? Yes. So that is the one that you'll be working with to ensure that you secure the interest of the country. And then we also negotiate bilateral investment treaties and double taxation. Somebody mentioned that in conjunction with other relevant government ministries. And then international judicial cooperation, I've already talked about the three. Ukisikia hii international judicial cooperation, you know it's three. Mutual legal assistance, extradition, transfer of sentenced persons. Sawa sawa? Yeah. And then intellectual property law. If you are interested, you see this is a field you can also work in. So this one we work closely with Kekobo on matters of IP. And then aviation and space law, we also assist in negotiation and provide legal opinions on air services. They are called BASAs, Bilateral Air Service Agreements, between the government of Kenya and other states. And we also provide interpretation, because those agreements, I've already told you, they have to come to the office for legal vetting before you sign. International human rights law. The Office of the Attorney General is the convener of the National Committee for Implementation of IHL, with the chairperson being the Solicitor General. So that is the role that we have. These are my colleagues who are part of that implementation committee. And then law of the sea and maritime law provide legal guidance to government agency in regard to Kenya's obligation to UNCLOS, United Convention on the Law of the Sea, and other maritime issues. International and environment law is also another area. So we work closely with the Ministry of Environment to ensure that our obligation when it comes to international environmental law are yes, implemented good. So we also provide interpretation, because sometimes they have a treaty or they've entered into a bilateral agreement, but they need to understand better the implications. That is when we come in also to be able to advise. And then we also have an aspect on security matters. We advise on the development, implementation of defense cooperation agreement, like Kenya and UK one. The office is also involved in that. And also we liaise with MDAs in implementation of the regional and international policies and instruments, and then participate in the coordination of anti-terrorism activities and programs, and also border controls. The Office of the Attorney General also takes part in such missions. Other assignments, there are other board that the Attorney General is required as a member of that board. So the international law, where there is a board that has the mandate of international law, that we also represent the Office of the Attorney General in that board. And also we represent in international initiatives and ongoing working groups which have an impact on domestic law, like UNCITRAL. This is the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law, working groups. There's working group 1, 2, 3. When you have time, you go and Google this, and especially if you have an interest in international trade law. And then quickly I'll go to the opportunities available. So there is pupillage for 6 months. Some of you, I know, they're already doing the pupillage in our office, nimewaona. And you apply, because now the Office of the Attorney General Act was amended. Now the application is done to the Office of the Attorney General directly. There is a call, and then you apply. So you know the requirements. You need to have the letter from the school, your ID, and your LLB. Is it? Certificate. And then we also have internship at the Public Service Commission. So you know the internship that they usually advertise for a year. So those internship is one of the places that you can be placed is the Office of the Attorney General. And then postgraduate scholarship, we also offer those. And then employment as State Council, Advisory Board. This one, because now we amended the law. Previously, it used to be the Public Service Commission, but now it's the Attorney General. There's an advisory board that appoints State Council. And these are the qualifications: Bachelor of Laws degree, postgraduate diploma in law, Kenya School of Law, an advocate admitted of the High Court of Kenya, requirement of Chapter 6, and then computer packages. Mmefanya hiyo computer? Haya, ndio hiyo sasa, mkuje, tunawangoja. Sawa sawa. Yeah, so these are the requirements, and then you come in at the entry level. You start in as State Council 2, unapanda unaenda Senior State Council, unakuja Principal mahali niko, and then you go to other Deputy Chief. You can go up to Deputy Solicitor General and Senior Deputy Solicitor General. Sawa sawa. Yeah, thank you.